low for the zone. So now I'm not sure what they're going to do about it. For me, they needed football, but I'm not au fait with the ins and outs of the business element of it. And, listen, I'm hoping it works. Of course I am. We want to get as many options as possible as boxing fans. We want to see fights, as many of them as possible. So, of course, I want the zone to be a big success. Whether they can do it or not, I really couldn't tell you in terms of the financial element.
Yeah, because I think the reason why Netflix works and Amazon works is because Hollywood is a billion-dollar industry. Everybody watches movies. I do, you do, your mum. Everybody watches movies. Whereas boxing is still a niche sport. It's very, very small market.
Yeah, but
boxing.
I think also beyond that, though, you could watch a movie 5 years after it was made and you still enjoy it. Maybe you've never seen it before. Maybe you've seen it 5 times. You still enjoy it. Yeah. That can happen with boxing as well. But with sport, the beauty of it is the shock factor, the awe factor. And that works when it's live. Now, it not being live is quality because the ability to get it when it's not live is quality because, let's say you got a 4 o'clock fight in Las Vegas and you're working the next day. You're working the next day. You've got to be up early. You can avoid the result. Come home, watch it like you haven't seen it before. That's something that Catch Up also offers on the TV though. How many people are going to go back and watch a 2-year-old fight? It works differently. Sport with movies or TV shows. Sport really has to be live. Now it can work brilliantly, like I said, if the live element works too. If they get the live element right, then there's no reason. Yeah. So listen, they're gonna have to address it. I'm sure that they've got some great minds working behind this. They've pumped a lot of money into it, and it looks like they're willing to pump a lot more into it. It'll be interesting to see how they go. Like I said, I hope it's a roaring success. And fans that don't want it to be a success, I don't think want to be boxing fans, to be honest. They're affiliated with specific networks, and they want those networks to do well. I'm not one of those people. I couldn't care less. I'm not team DAZN. I'm not team PBC. I'm not team any of them. What I am is team boxing. I want to see the best fight the best.
Absolutely. Do you think Eddie Head was a mistake saying pay-per-view was dead all those years ago? Because now Canel's fighting Bivol for pay-per-view. That pay-per-view market, I definitely knew wasn't going away. That especially when they make the big money, you have to charge your audience pay-per-view buys to make that money, especially for the big fights.
Well, look, I think the error that they've made is not being able to explain it well enough. Ultimately, pay-per-view as a run-of-the-mill model is not sustainable. It's just not, because people pay far too much money. Disposable income is going to keep coming down as the world's economy gets more and more messed up. People can't afford necessarily to be paying £20 for a fight, let alone what is paid in the United States. It adds up. People have got other costs. So doing it week in, week out, when you're already, month in, month out, say, when you're already paying a subscription, it's difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people dismiss it, but maybe those people don't have the financial difficulties that other, people have that have families or whatever. If you want it to be a long-term sustainable thing, then one of the key things you have to do is to bring in the right level of advertising. Now, to bring in advertising, you need bums on seats for it to pay off. Or to get bums on seats, you need it to be on terrestrial television. So again, I'm not sure how they find the right balance. Where they've made an error, though, in my opinion, DAZN, is that I'm not sure which fight it is, but there's a fight coming up in the United States, which is pay-per-view. And it's something like $20 a month, I think, for the subscription of DAZN in the United States. And let's say it's $80 for the pay-per-view. For a DAZN subscriber, it's $60. Well, that's not giving you a discount. That's your $20 subscription, and then your $60. It equates to $80. It might be the Canelo Bivol fight. Yeah. That's wrong. What they should have done is said, right, we're going to give it to the existing customers for $40. What that then does is it makes all the others who are thinking about a subscription to take it. What's the point of me giving $80 for this one fight? Let me go and give $80 and get 2 months worth of DAZN. And if you can capture fans like that, then maybe that's a way to go, to offer a carrot to fans, a reward to fans that are willing to subscribe, and then to treat them well once they have subscribed. Make sure you've got your loyal fan base coming back and not wanting to get rid of their subscriptions when there's a quiet month or whatever in the calendar. But listen, it's a difficult task for them. I think they're going to have to find a way to improve their advertising on TV.
In my opinion,
I know they want to cut their cost.
Would you say in your opinion, was Box Nation a success? In your opinion, was that a failure? Box Nation all those years ago, because Frank tried to do something similar when he left Sky. It's a boxing channel.
I mean, look, I loved Box Nation. I loved it. And it was doing very well, it seems, until BT bought them out. So I would suspect that it was a success for them to be bought out, right? Okay. So it definitely worked with Box Nation. It definitely worked. The difference is Box Nation, again, was a channel. It was also available online. I think when it's only available online as an app, it becomes a little bit different. It's harder, again, to promote. But even Box Nation, look, there weren't many costs for Box Nation themselves, as far as I'm aware. Box Nation were renting fights from the United States. DAZN, with Eddie Hearn there and stuff, they're seeking as a network often to fund the fight. They're trying to make the fight. So their costs are higher than what would have been the case of Box Nation. So they need a bigger return. So I don't think it's quite a like for like sort of comparison. But again, listen, I'm speculating here. I don't know the ins and outs of the business sort of elements here.
Because Box Nation, not Box Nation, sorry, DAZN, the pound over $1 billion in debt before the guy, the founder, put like $4 billion in investing in funding, because they were like over $1 billion in debt.
I think if you're going to go down that route of really investing that much, you've got to be sure that you get the stars that you want to get. You want to get the big named fighters, and they seem to have failed in that regard on a couple of occasions. You know, DAZN have to start being able to get the biggest names and some of the biggest prospects as well. You know, losing out, say, on Keyshawn Davis, that was a big loss for them, I believe, in the United States. They've got to find a way to sign up, I think, the biggest and the best names, so that if they are going to become like the UFC, say, of boxing, they've got to create a scenario, an illusion, whereby fans think that if I want to see the best boxing, I've got to go to DAZN. Whereas right now, DAZN might possibly be the best network for watching boxing on, but the others, the networks are great too. So it's one of those scenarios whereby how can you invest that much money and there's still a debate as to who, you know, how far the gap is between the stables. Listen, it's a difficult one, man. I really, definitely. Like I said, I'm not au fait with their.
Absolutely. Speaking about big name, can you see Anthony Joshua fighting in the zone? His next fight, I reckon he's definitely a Sky fighter.
Well, because Sky is the bigger platform, it looks like it's going to be on Sky from what they're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, see, these are the sorts of losses, I guess you could say, that are quite big to the zone. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, they could really.
Yeah, so you're saying?
No, I'm just saying they could really do with a star like an AJ, like a Tyson Fury, guys that they don't have. They've got Canelo, which is great, but even Canelo's a free agent. So, you know, they've got to find a way to sign up guys, I think. But listen, again, I'm not au fait with their business model. So I'm just speculating here.
Definitely. Well, we just hope, you know, as boxing fans, we just hope it, you know, it pulls through. We shall see. You know, it's a big gamble, and we just see what the future brings. In terms of other fights, what's your the Tyson Fury Dillian White fight? How you see that fight going? Because there's an obvious answer, but also there's a possible upset that could happen.
So there's a couple of things I want to do a bit of a film study on before I sort of commit to a prediction. But my initial thoughts are this is going to be a much harder fight than people think. I don't think that Tyson Fury maintains range as well as he used to. I think he's become heavier. Now, what I'm not sure about is whether this is what's the word I'm looking for? A conscious approach that he took against Deontay Wilder, and he's going to adapt and he's going to end up looking like he did in the first Deontay Wilder fight, or whether it's signs of aging. If it is signs of aging and he has to stand in front of White and they go to war, I could envisage ways in which both guys get hurt and both hit the canvas. So I think it's going to be a terrific fight. I really do. I'm not sleeping on White the way a lot of people are. I think Dillian White's going to have his moments in this fight. If they're both at their best, then I have to go with Tyson Fury without a doubt. But listen, it's going to be a good fight. I think they're two quality fighters.
Definitely. Are you shocked about how well it's done? Because I knew it was a big fight, but I was shocked when you said 85,000 tickets done in 3 hours. Like, wow. Because people say Tyson Fury is a name, but nowhere near AJ numbers. Like this first time, like Fury done AJ numbers in terms of selling tickets at that level. Because Tyson Fury's not known for selling in stadium. I think the most is done like 20,000 at MEN Arena all those years ago. It's come back fight. So we're shocked how well this fight's done, in terms of ticket sales.
Not at all. I mean, listen, Dillian White's a pay-per-view star on his own, let alone with Tyson Fury, who's now a superstar after those Wilder fights in the United States. He's a superstar. He's been on, I don't know, Good Morning Britain or whatever it's called, daytime TV shows.
Yeah, TV shows, been WWE as well.
Yeah. So listen, man, people know Tyson Fury is a great fighter. He's a big personality. I'm not surprised at all that it managed to sell out. A lot of them have gone on StubHub. So interesting to see how they go on the resale. I think they will pretty much all be taken up. And I think there'll be a lot of pay-per-view buys as well. It would have been even more paper buys if Dillian White decided he wanted to play his part. And I think it was short-sighted of the promotional company of Fury, of Top Rank and Queensberry, not to give him some sort of cut for the pay-per-view. I think had he been invested in trying to promote the fight, it would have sold even more. You know, imagine them talking on TalkSport, for instance, of a beef that happened today between Fury and White. It's going to capture more of the general public.
Definitely, that press conference got even more. It would have probably done over 100,000 views easily on YouTube. You know, if they had a conference together. Why was that conference? That would have done mad numbers.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of boxing, from your analytical thinking, how do you create a boxing star? How do you get like a Chris Eubank or Nigel Benn or Naz or Ricky Hatton or Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua? What elements makes a superstar in boxing? Is it the personality? Is it fighting styles? Is it the sex appeal? What makes a star?
I think first and foremost, to become a star, you have to have charisma. Now, what that charisma is can be anything. So you look at a guy like Anthony Joshua. He's very prim and proper. He's a gentleman. He acts like a statesman. Very different to Tyson Fury. Very different to Deontay Wilder. But all three of them are stars. Ricky Hatton, again, a man of the people. He would come across as a little bit of a Jack the lad from Manchester that the people would relate to and stuff like that. Very different, say, to somebody like a Floyd Mayweather. But again, with superstars. So it's not necessarily about what style you have. I think you need that charisma. And the sort of fans that like your style will then be drawn to you. But you need that charisma. Now, in terms of, you mentioned sex appeal there, a look plays a role. It does. It can play a role. But again, that's to do with charisma. Anthony Joshua is very popular, for instance, with women. I actually know a woman who doesn't like boxing, but she wants me to tell her whenever David Lemieux is fighting, right? Yeah, and David Lemieux is very popular. Yeah, David Lemieux is very popular in Canada.
I had a friend of mine who wasn't boxing either, but always wanted him when David Haye was fighting. Oh, big David Haye fan.
Yeah, exactly. David Haye, David Lemieux, Canelo Alvarez is popular with women. Who else is there? Ryan Garcia. Sorry?
Yeah, Oscar De La Hoya as well. Big ladies, man.
Oscar De La Hoya. Well, yeah, Ryan Garcia. You have this running joke with a lot of people online saying Ryan Garcia is the illegitimate son of Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah. So you have these sorts of things. They play a role. They play a role where, you know, women will be drawn to fighters. But again, that's just one element of charisma. You could be someone that women consider to be ugly, but you are translating in a different way. It's just a way of relating. If you're able to relate to the public and they're able to love you, then you can become a star. Because you can get some really top talents that don't transcend in the same way. Andre Ward, great fighter, hasn't transcended in the way as some other superstars. Whereas you get a guy like Derek Chisora, who's nowhere near as talented as Andre Ward, and in the UK, he's a star. So, you know, it depends really. I think charisma plays a big role and the willingness to be promoted. You know, it's about, a lot of times it's about who pushes you as well. It does play a role.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Like, there's so many talented fighters, but for some reason they couldn't become superstars. Like Andrew Ward, Rigondo, so many others. You know, I think he possibly could have been a star, but I don't think it was maybe promoted correctly. Definitely, Natasha Jones as well. Definitely, there's so many boxers that they're talented, but unfortunately, you don't have the right promotion behind them.
See, it's interesting though that you mentioned Natasha Jonas, because she's one of the most popular female boxers among men that I see on my timeline. There are a lot of men that love Natasha Jonas. So going back to the idea of your look, well, she's got a look that a lot of men love, and they haven't managed to really make her into a star. Why is that? Is it because they just didn't push her hard enough? So that's what I mean about a lot of times it's about who gives you your break as well and how much willing to push you and how hard they're willing to push you. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes into it, man. But yeah, you do need the ability to entertain. You do need that in the ring. There's no point in having all the other attributes, but then you're a boring fighter. People will get bored of you, you know.
Yeah. So what is speak about self promoters? What do you think of Ebony Bridges? Do you think that's a great way to promote yourself?
Yeah, listen, Ebony Bridges is another woman who's obviously, she's a very beautiful woman, and that plays a big role in a lot of people sort of taking notice. But she's also good at playing the game. She can talk. She's quite flirty sometimes, even with fans. Now, you'd have to assume that 99% of these fans who she's a little bit flirty with, not in a cheap way, she'll just drop her, you know. Sorry?
Yeah, most of all, they'll be straight men, of course. You find it very attractive in the eyes.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I said, most of these fans, they're not going to have like a chance with Ebony Bridges. And, you know, but because she's approachable, she's playful, men like that, and they'll tune in. You know, this is the reality, and she plays the game very, very well. She plays the game very, very well.
I think, what do you think of that statement, that controversial statement about, what's his name, that famous, the Gareth Davis saying Ebony Bridges, the Muhammad Ali boxing? What do you think of that comparison? What do you think he meant by Ebony Bridges being at Muhammad Ali? Do you think in terms of promotional, marketing, where do you think that statement come from?
To be honest with you, that's the first I've heard of it, so I'm not too sure. Yeah, I guess has he been asked to explain it? I don't know. I don't think he's talking about her abilities, obviously. Maybe he's just talking about the fact that she's become the most iconic figure in modern day boxing. You know, if you're talking about female fighting, she's the one that people know, even though she's not the best female fighter out there. You're not going to compare her to Clarissa Shields or Savannah Marshall or Katie Taylor or whoever else. You know, she's Amanda Serrano. That's not her. But people talk about her more than anyone else. Maybe that's why. But I couldn't say. I don't know.
What do you think it would take for female boxing to become as popular as, like, say, female wrestling or female MMA? Who do you think potentially could be the Ronda Rousey of female boxing, or the China of female boxing?
Look, whatever you say, those are individual cases of very famous women in their given sports. But as a sport holistically, female WWE or WWF, as it used to be called WWE now, is not as popular as male WWE. Female UFC and MMA, it's not as popular as male ones. Yes, you've got individual stars. Ronda Rousey was a star. Valentina Shevchenko is a wonderful fighter to watch. She's actually so talented, but she's not going to be a superstar like a Conor McGregor or a John Jones or an Adesanya, you know, Covington, list goes on, Masvidal. She's not that. And so I've listed you a whole bunch of names there from UFC that are big names, star names, and there's a whole lot more I could list you. Whereas if we do the same with the women's game, there are fewer there. And the reality is, this may be an unpopular thing that people don't want to hear. The truth is the depth isn't there, because the vast majority of women are not necessarily willing to go down that route of wanting to fight. The reality is fighting can affect a whole bunch of things that affect your lifespan. A lot of women want to have children. It could potentially cause an injury where it could affect that.
There are to your parents, you mess up your face.
Exactly, and you know that plays a role in the lives of many people and many women, of course. And you know, listen, a lot of people don't like to say that there are differences between men and women because they almost see it as though you're almost saying women can't do what they want to do. Of course they can. They're allowed to. But by the same token, it's also remiss to say that there aren't some differences between the genders. There are. And a lot of women will not have that level of testosterone and aggression where they want to go and have a literal punch up. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that means you've got a smaller source pool to draw from. There are fewer women that grow up dreaming of becoming the next champion of the UFC or champion of boxing than there are young boys who dream of it. That's just the reality. So I don't think it will ever be as popular based on that. It could become more popular than it is now to reach the levels of the UFC and the levels of women's wrestling, but it's not ever going to surpass the men's games. You know, and listen, you get it the other way around too. There are other industries whereby women are the ones that are sort of more popular or pushed more. Say modeling, for instance, doesn't matter how famous of a male model you are, you're not going to get as many as there are female superstar supermodels. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
same
if I was to tell you,
well, that pornography, that's always going to be a female-dominated business no matter what.
yeah, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of industries like that, whereby, I never thought of that one, but yeah. But yeah, so things like, so like modeling, for instance, to go back to that, if I was to tell you, name me all the female supermodels you know, and then all the male supermodels you know, you're going to be able to name a lot more female supermodels. That's just the reality. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, people are drawn to different things based on their upbringings, based on what their biological differences are. There's nothing wrong with saying that and accepting that. And yeah, that's where we're at with it. So yes, female boxing can grow, but I think it will always be behind the men's game. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah.
I wish them all the best.
Definitely.
I wish them all the best. I want them to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. I give it to Eddie Hearn for trying his best, to promote female boxing. To try and Katie Taylor. He's done a lot for Katie Taylor. He did, Amy Bridges as well, and he's done. I think Eddie Hearn's probably only promoted that's really backing female boxing, because I don't think Frank Warren hates. I don't think Frank Warren will ever promote women's boxing.
Top Rank push it. Top Rank as well, man. I think Top Rank push it quite a bit as well. You've got Maya. Who else have you got? You've got a few there, I think. A few in the America. I think Top Rank push it a little bit. But listen, look, I'm not an expert on the women's game. I'm not going to lie. One of the obstacles that women's boxing has for me, and I'm being honest, this is just an honest answer, my personal position on this. I was always raised in a way whereby I had to sort of be careful and protect the women in my family, female friends and stuff like that. As a fan, I find it a little bit hard to want to root for a woman to get knocked out. It's just not, it's not something that I can really, like, I can't sit there and get excited. Yeah, like, she's been knocked out. Like, I find it hard. So that's another obstacle for fans as well, I think. Some fans, a minority, I'm sure I'm in the minority. But yeah, it's just one of those things, I don't, not that I ever want to see men get hurt, but it's different. I think you've been around it a lot more. You almost become desensitized to it with men when you're watching them box. But with women, to me at least, it's still a little bit harder to sort of really engross myself in and root for. So listen, everyone's different. I hope they achieve the very best in their careers. I hope they all make money and achieve their dreams and things like that. And, congratulations to them for doing any of the groundbreaking stuff they've done. But I do think that male boxing is always going to be a step ahead.
I agree. It's just one of those things, it's one of the things, some things for men, some things for women. It's just, it was one of those things that was probably the same. Maybe women boxing may grow, become more popular, but it will never be as popular as men's boxing. This is how, way it is in terms of, human's mindset. You're more used to seeing a man, punching each other up rather than a woman getting knocked out. Just more used to it.
Mm.
So in terms of fights you're looking forward to, obviously there's Fury White, there's Serrano Taylor. What fights looking forward to this year? Is there any upcoming fight you really looking forward to? And what's your most anticipated fight?
I'm excited, like you said, about Fury White. If AJ Usyk 2 happens, I'm very excited about that. I'd love to see Sonny Edwards in there against Martinez. I'm excited about that one. I'm also, there's so many fights that I'd love to see. A lot in the heavyweight division. There's a lot of matchups that I hope get made in the heavyweight division. Bivol and Canelo, I think that's going to be a great fight to watch. Hopefully we don't get any questionable judging in that one.
Yeah,
listen, man, boxing's in a high place right now. I think there are a lot of fights out there that I really want to see.
Speaking about AJ and Usyk, and that fight unlikely happened because unfortunately with Usyk and the Ukraine situation, what do you think of AJ's potential interim fight like Otto Wallin, Joe Joyce, Luis Ortiz? What do you think would be the best fight for you to take right now to help prepare them for the Usyk rematch down the line?
In terms of preparation, definitely Wallin, because he's a southpaw who can be a little bit evasive, and that's of the ones you've mentioned and the realistic ones available, that's the best prep. In terms of what will excite me the most, it's definitely the Joe Joyce fight. Ortiz, I have no real interest in seeing. I think he's washed up. I think Martin hurt him on more than one occasion. I think he's way past his best. The Varlene fight offers some interesting stuff. I don't think that Varlene is. I think he was flattered by the Fury fight, but I think he's a good boxer. I think he's an underrated boxer, but he's also not elite. So I think it would be interesting to see how AJ deals with that. And eventually, I think AJ would come through it and stop him. But it's the one, I guess, where you could work on certain things. Whereas the one that makes you think, oh, I really wonder how this is going to go, that would be the Joyce fight for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that'd probably be a toughest challenge as well. Definitely, because he's definitely juggernaut. He's got those stamina and he's got that chin. You know, you wonder if AJ can actually handle, you know, that constant stamina and that chin of, you know, steel. So, in terms of AJ's trainer, Angel Fernandez, is that the best trainer that AJ could have chosen, or if AJ should have gone with an American trainer, maybe one of Shields or Robert Garcia?
You know, it's difficult for me to say because Angel Fernandez doesn't have a big background that we can look into and analyze. What I will say is that Anthony Joshua went around and saw a whole bunch of trainers and he looked at them, he analyzed them, and then he said, you know what, I want to be with Angel. So maybe Angel is very special in terms of his knowledge and his training methods behind the scenes. And we don't know about it because there must be a reason that he decided, you know what, I don't want McCracken here anymore. I think I need to move on from that. But then that means that growth, that he sees it as growth, lies with Angel Fernandez. And I'm not one of these people that believes in necessarily big names. I'm not. Yes, a big name can be a great trainer, great fighter, whatever. But talent exists everywhere, even in the unknown areas, unknown regions, and you can find that talent. You can unearth it.
Yeah, when Ben Davison proved it. Ben Davison, what did with Fury? You know, he did a lot. You know,
exactly, and he's flying high at the moment, Ben Davison. And again, you see this in all sports. Jose Mourinho was an assistant and a translator for Bobby Robson. He ended up becoming one of the best managers of all time, statistically. So, you know, there have been some great trainers that never boxed in the past. Customato, for instance. So, listen, it's one of those where I'm not willing to judge. AJ's there. He sees, he knows. Whether it's the right decision or not, we're going to find out soon. Are we going to see AJ improve? Or are we going to see him decline? I don't know. Even if he was to decline, does that necessarily mean Angel Fernandez is not a great trainer? Maybe Anthony Joshua has lost his hunger. Who knows? So it's so difficult to judge. We're going to judge as time progresses and we see what Angel Fernandez does with AJ and with other fighters potentially. But for now, I'm not willing to criticize.
For me, this might sound too assumptive, but I just don't. I can't see AJ beating the best Usyk. I think Joshua can knock him out. But I just think AJ. I think he's just too clever to just adapt to whatever AJ.
But here's the thing, right? I don't agree with the idea that just because a trainer's technical, he's only training you to be able to box. You know, if Anthony Joshua learns how to box at the highest level, and he's already at the high level, Usyk's just a little bit higher than him, but he's already a high level boxer. He's going to be a boxer puncher. In other words, he's going to be looking to lure Usyk onto a big shot to knock him out. It doesn't mean that Angel Fernandez is telling him, right, AJ, we've got to learn how to win on points. No. What he's trying to do is set up or set traps to take away Usyk's best weapons in a bid to lure him in and land something big on him. You see what I'm saying? So It doesn't mean that he has to run across the ring and start chasing Usyk and throwing big haymakers and hope to catch him and knock him out. You know, I don't think someone like Ronnie Shields would tell him to do that either. So, you know, it's one of those things whereby you've got to learn as well about how to bring the best out of your opponent and take away your opponent's, bring the best out of your fighter and take away your opponent's strengths. And you can be a technical boxing coach and do that. It doesn't mean that you're only capable of doing one thing.
Definitely. So do you think AJ can beat Usyk, the best Usyk, or he has to be only prepared Usyk? I don't think AJ can beat the best Usyk. Usyk's on his ball, on his A game again. I can't see Joshua beating Usyk.
I think, look, it was close through 8 rounds, and I thought Usyk pulled away. Anthony Joshua's got the power to turn a fight around in any given moment. I think it's a very competitive fight that could go either way. I think Usyk's the favorite, so I think he's more likely to win. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if AJ did it. I do think AJ's a top-level heavyweight. So yeah, I do think he's capable of beating Usyk. He's capable. Does he beat Usyk? I don't know.
Can he only beat him by knockout?
It depends. Let's say he was through 8 rounds, the first fight was nip and tuck. It was close. Let's say he, on top of that, he managed to knock Usyk down. So let's say in the 9th round, he knocked Usyk down. Well, all of a sudden, Usyk's got to then come back. Maybe you can knock him down a couple of times and it starts to break. I mean, look, Lee Wood last night, the 2 of the judges had him 1 round down going into that 12th, and one judge had it 105, 102. Had Conlon got up from that second knockdown and survived the fight, Lee Wood would have won by majority decision. One judge would have had it a draw, and two would have had it to Lee Wood because of the two knockdowns. Now, there's no doubt that Conlon was the superior technical boxer, right? But with the knockdowns, it could have swung it in his favor. So it's not impossible for him to win it on points, but I do think for him to win it on points, he would have to hurt Usyk. I don't think he's just going to outbox him, but I don't think anybody outboxes Usyk like that. So, you know, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean he's limited. He's just not as good in that area as Usyk is. It's just, you know, and there's areas that Usyk's not as good as AJ. AJ's a bigger puncher. He's more destructive. So, do you see what I'm saying? So listen, man, they're great fighters. Again, hopefully we get an opportunity to see them do it again, and we'll see how it plays out. Yes, I do think Usyk's more likely to win the fight, but listen, they're great fighters. And, you know, just like in football, again, you might have the best team in Europe playing the fifth best team in Europe or the fourth best team in Europe. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to win the match. On any given night, anything can happen. And, I think that's what the case is going to be like here.
Is there such thing in boxing as an upset, like Tyson, Douglas, Lewis, Ryman? Are these upsets or just people not giving the fighters, underestimating, you know, these fighters who do have maybe the best records?
It's a bit of both sometimes. It's a bit of both. With Buster Douglas, I thought that was a big upset. He was underrated as a boxer. I'm not sure he lived the lifestyle, Buster Douglas, to be able to remain at the elite level, but that was a massive upset. You do get other times, though, whereby it's not an upset per se, but it's a bit of an upset, but a guy just was being slept on. For instance, George Kambosos. Yeah. George Kambosos beating Teofimo Lopez was an upset, but Kambosos is a class fighter. People were sleeping on Kambosos. There's a difference there. Shane McGuigan was talking about this, in fact, when he was talking about Catterall and Josh Taylor. And Shane McGuigan felt that Catterall just fought a basic fight. And he actually gave Kambosos as an example. And he said, this wasn't a breakout fight like Kambosos. So what Shane McGuigan was saying is Kambosos was a star and people didn't know about him. Whereas Catterall went through the basics and Josh Taylor had an off night. So if you were to ask McGuigan, he'll tell you, listen, it was poor preparation or whatever from Taylor. And it was a big upset because Catterall turned up on the night. Whereas Kambosos was genuinely an elite level lightweight and people were just sleeping on him. So I think it's a bit of both, you know. I think it depends on any given fighter and any given night.
So the Mir Khan and British Pesco, but that definitely not an upset. I could definitely say Pesco was an elite fighter.
Yeah, to me, that's an upset. To me, that's an upset. I thought that he was all wrong for Khan. Stylistically, Khan was a young man as well, don't forget. So a lot of people hold it against him. He was very young. It's not the Khan that then went on to become the Amir Khan. But he was, he was a young guy, won a silver medal at the Olympics as well. So they were building him up. They put him in against a big puncher who ran across the ring, landed a big shot early that Khan never recovered from. That's an upset. I don't think Briedis Prescott was superior to Khan. He just happened to have his number on that given night. Maybe stylistically. Sorry, go on.
What was your opinion about Joshua Ruiz? The whole situation.
So Joshua Ruiz, I actually picked Ruiz when I was back. I picked Ruiz. I won a bet on it. I've stopped gambling since then for other reasons, for religious reasons. To be honest with you, I want to try and be closer to God, and I didn't want to be promoting that on my channel and stuff like that. That was just a personal choice. But back then, when I was still betting, I had a bet on Andy Ruiz because of the value. If it was 50-50, I might have lent towards Joshua if the odds were 50-50. But he was such a big underdog, Ruiz. I knew one thing. Andy Ruiz, as good as AJ is up close at mid-range, Andy Ruiz's hands are even faster. And he's got great variation with his hooking. And he does these little movements, just little movements, which can make it quite hard sometimes to be able to land on him flush. And because he's a big dude as well, big fat dude, he's hard to tie up and wrap your arms around. And so I remember thinking, if AJ makes the error of not keeping him at bay, and bear in mind, AJ came in big and heavy. This was not the AJ that fought Pulev. This is not the AJ that fought Povetkin that showed the ability to get on his toes and box on the back foot. He came in big and heavy like a bully because he was preparing for Jerome Miller. And I remember thinking to myself, if they start exchanging at mid-range, Ruiz is going to be landing some combinations, man. So the upset's there, it's available. Ruiz is another one people can't sleep on. He fought a very close fight that he lost away in New Zealand against Joseph Parker. He's another top-level heavyweight, right? He's got very slow feet, So some of the better boxers who can keep him at range will fancy their chance of being able to do that. But if he's able to close that range on you and get close and let go of those combinations, he's a hard cat to deal with, and that's the truth.
Yeah, definitely. I think Ruiz, like Buster Douglas, he's definitely a top heavyweight, but just has a lazy lifestyle. Just unfortunately, I don't know have lifestyle. Doesn't have the most disciplined lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, let's see now what he does. Let's see if he can stay on track now. But hopefully he can, because he'd be a great addition to the division if he can stay focused.
Definitely. Definitely. So in terms of plans going forward in your channel, do you want to do more interviews? Do you want to interview boxers, attend events? What's your plans for your channel going forward now, Chris?
You know what? I've wanted to interview fighters. I'm going to be actually interviewing a couple of former fighters, hopefully over the next coming weeks, that I've been speaking to. I'll keep that a secret until I upload it. But one of the things I worry about when it comes to interviewing active fighters is that on my channel, I take great pride in the fact that I'm neutral. I don't
unbiased.
Yeah, I always, I'll praise Tyson Fury one week, I'll criticize him the next if I feel he deserves it. The same with Anthony Joshua, Dillian White, Usyk, all of them. And because of that, if you start interviewing fighters and you develop close relationships with them, I'm worried that it might create a thing where I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. And listen, I'm never disrespectful to fighters. I'm not sitting here clowning them or anything like that. That's not really what my channel's about. But at the same time, I want to be able to be honest and say, you know what, I felt this guy lost this fight. I feel this guy is going to lose this fight, and so on and so forth. And a lot of boxers do get sort of sensitive about that. They get a little bit emotional. When you pick against them, a lot of them think that it's something personal. It's not. In football, no one takes it personally. You're a Man United fan. If you were to turn around and say, you know what, I actually think we're going to lose away at Bayern Munich, say, no one's going to say, oh, you're anti-United. It's just a prediction. I think we're going to lose at Bayern Munich. Whereas if you say it about a boxer, they take it personally,
I wish boxing commentary was less biased. I wish it was more like football. I wish we had on Roy Keane, Jeremy Carragher had unbiased, boxing commentary. A lot of boxing nowadays, the commentary is very biased, all depending on the promoter.
I think football commentary can be quite biased too, though. You'll get a lot of, if they know a player, then maybe they played with him, or for instance, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was being criticized by a lot of people, you always saw that Gary and Rio were a little bit more gentle with him because they know him and you understand they're friends. And, so I think it applies across the board, to be honest with you. I think it can happen in any sport. And this is why I've always been against fighters becoming judges for that same reason, because you're going to have connections. And that's not the right thing. It has to be impartial. So in terms of my channel, I'm going to just keep trying to do what I'm doing. I've got a couple of other ideas that I want to implement, hopefully can make the channel grow. And we'll see how it goes from there. You never know, might get spotted one day. That was the dream of all of us, isn't it? To get spotted. You look at a guy like Adi Oladipo, who's done a terrific job with DAZN. He started off doing these sorts of things.
What do you do for a living? What's your full-time job? What do you do? What's your, you maybe mention to me work now. What's your job outside YouTube? What do you do for a living?
So a freelance consultant. I'm an analyst where I do a whole bunch of analytical stuff. I've worked for professional football clubs in the past where I've done some tactical and technical analysis, kind of like the breakdowns I do sometimes for boxing. I've done them for football coaches. I've also done more mundane sort of stats-based stuff. But it's not just for football. I've worked in local governments, a council type jobs. I worked for a property development company. It's basically freelance consulting. I go in, I analyze some problems that they might have, look at their as-is sort of process and how they can improve it and how it should be. And, it's that sort of thing, basically.
I did interview a couple of months ago with Natasha Jonas, because I thought, because you like her, you're an excellent talker, speaker, you're very analytical. So have you thought about maybe pursuing a job for Sky or DAZN, like become a full-time boxing commentator or journalist? Because I think you'd be an excellent, commentator for those big channels.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a lovely thing for you to say. I really appreciate that. Look, it would be a wonderful thing to get the opportunity to do something like that. But again, the reality is you have to catch the eye, I guess. At the end of the day,
have connections.
I'm not saying you have to necessarily have a connection. Like I said, Adi Oladipo's done a terrific job. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware of, he just built up a regular boxing channel online and he got headhunted, he got spotted. And I think he's brilliant at what he does. He's a fantastic presenter for DAZN. So sometimes they might see something they like and approach you. Who knows? That would be a dream for everybody, I think, involved in this YouTube game. We all love the sport. To be able to do it as a living would be a beautiful thing. But at the same time, there's so much competition that you have to also be realistic. So you have to try and be the best you can be. And who knows, maybe you can get a break. I would love to dip my hand in something like that, but who knows, God willing, one day something like that can happen.
What made you start your YouTube channel? How long have you been on YouTube for now?
I was on YouTube for a number of years. I wasn't taking it particularly seriously initially. I was just doing betting tips, actually. We used to do really well. We were doing it for about 3-4 years, and every single year I would basically tip different fights every week. And every year we would end up making quite a significant profit at the end of the year. And like I said, for religious purposes, I wanted to be closer to God. I didn't want to be encouraging other people to bet. I'd heard of a couple of scenarios as well where, not because of me, but just in general, people had developed some serious gambling issues. They'd lost a lot of money. And I just thought, look, everybody should have the right to do what they want. I'm not for the banning of gambling or anything like that. But for me to be pushing it and encouraging people, I just didn't feel right, So I then changed it to do more sort of boxing analysis, straight up analysis stuff. And some people really like the channel. And, Hatman Strikes Back, which is a big YouTube boxing channel. And then G-Man as well.
Is one of my favorites as well. I love boxing weeks and ones.
Yeah, and they were just very those two in particular for me, Hatman and G-Man, were very complimentary of my channel. Hatman did a video whereby he did 2 videos whereby he said, in fact, he did 3 videos. One was a live stream where he said, Chris Andre is one of the best boxing analysts you will ever come across. Please follow his video, check out his video. And that was so flattering to me because Hatman really knows his stuff. And he's been in and around the game and coached youth, like youngsters and stuff for so many years. He knows a lot of pro fighters. So for somebody like that to have said something so complimentary, it was a wonderful thing. And the channel started to grow. And
for me, because
I'm so grateful to them.
If you have some YouTubers, I like channels like yourself, Hatman, Boxing Beat Rhymes are very logical. Because I thought a lot of YouTubers are very biased. A lot of YouTubers are very Eddie Hearn Pro, very Frank Warren, very Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. I hate those fanboy channels. I like it when it's neutral, very open-minded. I hate those fanboy channels. That's why
the truth is
so much.
The truth is, it would be, if I really wanted to grow the channel and that was my primary aim, and it is an aim, right? It is what I want to do. But if that was my only aim, I would have done that a long time ago, where I would have affiliated myself to one fighter. Because what happens is, for instance, there was a period where I was very praising of Anthony Joshua, and he deserved that praise. And initially I was, my channel really grew quite quickly in a short space of time. And then when Eddie Hearn made an offer to Alexander Usyk, it was a lowball offer, the first offer. And I came out and I said it on my channel. Listen, this is a lowball offer. It's not right. And I lost a lot of subscribers instantly. They told me they were AJ fans and Tyson Fury, back in 2012, when nobody was really talking about Fury as a potential star, people were cussing him for uppercutting himself in the face and stuff like that. At the time, I was saying, listen,
that time, David Price went to be the heavyweight, successful.
Right. And on my channel, I was saying Tyson Fury is going to become the guy who's going to dethrone Klitschko. He's going to become the best heavyweight in the world. By 2014, I think 2015, I was saying, before the Klitschko fight, I was saying he's got the potential to become one of the best of all time. And when I was saying these things, I was getting mocked. There's no other way to put it. People were laughing at me. They were cussing me. Like, what are you talking about, Tyson Fury? And I wanted him to do well so I could be vindicated and go back and tell people, look, you see, now you're not laughing anymore. But the point is, I built up afterwards a bit of a Fury fan base. Well, more recently, when I've been a little bit more critical of some of the things Fury's done, and like I said, I think he's an amazing fighter, but when it comes, for instance, to the offers that Dillian White's been getting, and it's not even Fury I'm criticizing, really, it's the purse split, it's the WBC. Again, I had a few people tell me, I was talking rubbish, and they unfollowed me on Twitter. They were Fury fans. So you get a lot of people that are emotionally invested, and they ignore all the good things you've ever said just because you then take a different position with their favorite fighter. But that's what I want to be here on my channel. I want to be honest. I want to be unbiased. Had I affiliated with one particular fighter, I'm sure my channel would have grown a lot more, to be honest. But then it wouldn't have what I believe, and I hope I don't come across as arrogant when I say this, but I believe it's a good quality channel. And I don't want to give up on that quality just so I can build up the viewership. Do you see what I'm saying?
Definitely. Integrity, definitely. Because there's a lot of channels, honestly, there's a lot of channels bigger than our channel, but I think a lot of channels, the bigger ones, are very biased to a certain person, whether it be a promoter or a network or a fighter. A lot of these big YouTube channels are very biased. You can tell by the way they talk. They're very critical of one fight. They always praise the one fight without any valid reasons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, take Deontay Wilder, for instance. I lost followers, only a couple,
Or
when I said I didn't.
is it LDBC at the Lion Boxing Den?
Yeah.
Those fanboys.
Right. So I lost a couple of them fans because I didn't agree with what they were saying about Fury tampering the gloves. But then I lost a couple of anti-Wilder fans when I said he's actually a great fighter, though. He's a great fighter. He just, what he's saying is wrong, but he's a great fighter. So those people said to me, what are you talking about? Who's he ever fought? And I was saying, listen, forget that. Forget the CV. I'm just talking about his abilities and how dangerous he is. So the point is that whether you were pro-Wilder or anti-Wilder, I was rubbing everyone up the wrong way just because I was being honest.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But that's always what I'm going to be like. I'm going to be honest. And the truth is, the subscribers that have stuck around, I appreciate each and every one of them because they're happy to have my back. And they'll say to me, we love the channel. We love that it's unbiased. Keep doing what you're doing. And that's what I intend to do.
Definitely. Are you planning to go to any, have you been to, do you go to a lot of boxing events yourself? Do you go to Yorkshire shows or you quite active in any events?
I used to go all the time. I haven't been in a while now. The last fight I went to was Josh Taylor against Regis Prograis. But obviously with everything that happened with COVID and stuff like that, events stopped and things like that. Since they've started up again, I've not had the opportunity. I wanted to go to the Ryder Jacobs fight, but unfortunately I wasn't able to. Something came up.
What about you live in London?
Yeah. So, yeah. And so I'd even travel for a big boxing fight. I've got no problem with that. Again, I wanted to go to the Lee Wood-Conlon fight in Nottingham, but something came up. So, yeah, it's just about finding the time at the moment. With work, it's been a bit difficult for me. I'm working at some unorthodox hours on different projects and stuff. But yeah, I definitely would love to be able to get back to some fights sooner rather than later.
Definitely. I've been to the. I think you saw my picture. I was actually at the Mir Khan Kell book fighting at the Manchester Arena. That was nice to remember. 20,000 fans.
Wow, I can imagine. Yeah, that must have been quite an atmosphere.
I'm considering going to the Tyson Fury Dillian White fight at Wembley. I'm probably maybe first week of April. I'll probably buy a ticket, but it's gonna be expensive. But I might go for it. See how it goes.
From StubHub. Listen, if you're able to afford it and you want to go down there and do it, these are the sorts of fights that you will never forget. Definitely. So it'll be worth doing it, I guess.
Definitely. Do you in your area? Is there a lot of amateur boxing clubs in your area? Or do you live near any of the amateur boxing clubs?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in London's full of amateur boxing clubs everywhere. Yeah, I mean, wherever every little town, every little borough will have one or two boxing clubs. It's a niche sport in the UK, but participation is still quite high, particularly in big metropolises like London. Yeah, so boxing's thriving at the moment. Obviously, Manchester's
amateur boxers to help grow your fan base. Because I think I might consider into some amateur boxers as well. So sorry, say that again. That last bit again. Would you consider interviewing some amateur boxers at your local boxing gym in the help grow your channels?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the idea or anything like that. But like I said, with me, it's more a case of, well, for a start, it's about, I guess, the demand of it, what do my viewers really want to see? And also, am I going to develop relationships whereby if they turn pro, again, I'm going to have to be worried about, pleasing them. And I don't know. I mean, I've been asked, I'm not going to go too much into this in detail, but I've been asked by a former professional fighter if I'd be willing to work with a couple of youngsters, a couple of young prospects in a coaching capacity. So I've been asked if I can sort of help observe that as well, sort of performance analyst capacity as well. I've never done anything like that in terms of being sort of like an assistant trainer. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to consider it. This is a guy he was a pro fighter. He used to talk to me a lot about his own fights. And I used to do the sort of breakdowns that I do for my channel. I used to do with his opponents. And he always used to find me to be very useful. So I think he sort of offered me this opportunity. So I don't know. I might end up going down that route. I'll see. I don't know. I'll see. We'll see how life plays out.
Yeah, you never know. It looks like you're gonna have a more active role in boxing. Definitely, possibly in the future. Definitely more active role in boxing.
Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion about this because I did a video way back about the difference between our fighters and American fighters. I've noticed that a lot of our American champions, like the Ricky Hattons, the Carl Foxes, Lennox Lewis's, Inaz Ahmed, tend to retire with their money intact. But a lot of the American fighters, like your Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson's, your Evander Holyfield, in have a bigger career, they tend to end up financially, in a drainage. What do you think that is?
I think
The lifestyle, the entourages. So I know a lot of
I
our
think
fighters, I go to retire with their money intact. Well, a lot of the American fighters tend to retire broke or financially, in ruins.
yeah, listen, I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the background they've come from as well. If you come from a certain background where you're very, very poor, if you then come into a load of money, sometimes and you're young, sometimes it's hard to even know how to deal with that. You assume that it's going to keep on coming and coming and coming,
Yeah,
and you just spend and spend and spend. Mike Tyson's spoken about this in the past, and Mike Tyson came from the sort of difficult, poverty-stricken background that maybe, yes, you have some poor young fighters here too, but maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe Ricky Hatton's upbringing, for instance, might not have been quite the same as Mike Tyson's. Do you see what I'm saying? Lawrence Okolie, a great kid who's come from working a McDonald's minimum wage job. He's hardly flying in the big bucks, right? He's working at McDonald's. But again, it's a different. London has some really rough, tough areas, as does Manchester and Glasgow and various cities around the UK. But there are some areas in the hood in America, as they call it, the various projects that they've grown up in, where things are even more difficult. Yeah. And so you grow up in this environment and you get this big bundle of cash, and all of a sudden your life changes. You've gone from this kid that struggled to make ends meet to all of a sudden you've got women throwing themselves at you. You've got flash cars and flash jewelry being pushed on you. Why don't you buy this watch? And you get that watch and press is all over you, and you're showing your new bling on the camera, and all of a sudden your life's changed and you feel like you need to keep up with those appearances. Maybe that's the reason, but listen, I don't know. I really don't know, because I hope that they get some good advice, a lot of these fighters, and they invest in situations that can help.
I'll be honest with you, my heart was broken when Evander Holyfield fought that MMA guy. Is it Victor Belfort?
Yeah, man, that was horrible.
All-time great, 60-year-old man just fighting for pennies now, just because he can't pay, he can't pay the bills, child support. I don't want to see like all these old-time greats like Tommy Hearns and Evander Holyfield. They made hundreds of millions in their careers, and then they can't afford to retire. They fight past their prime. They get injuries, and I hate when you see a fight you respect so much, forced to forced to fight on just because he can't afford his lifestyle anymore, or because
I agree. I agree. It's terribly sad. Maybe promoters need to, or management companies or whoever, need to start advising them to look at financial advisors. And I don't know, man, but yeah, any young boxers out there that may be watching this, the one advice I would give you, one word of advice, is focus on the future, on the long term, no matter how good you are now, and build for a life and not just for the short term. And when you do that and you invest wisely and you're financially secure, then the good times can roll and you don't need to worry about losing it all. That's the only advice I can give them.
Speaking about, what do you think of the rise of self-promoter, like the way the Floyd did it, Oscar De La Hoya, and Canelo, these boxers who are stars haven't become their own bosses of their career? Is that something that any boxer can do? You have to be a superstar, become your self-promoter?
Yeah, I think you've got to have, I think a lot of things need to fall into place. First, you need to become a star before you can branch out. So initially, I think most fighters need the help. They need to get somewhere. And then after that, who knows? Like I said, I'm not too au fait with the business elements of boxing in that regard. I wouldn't know how to advise somebody to self-promote and become a star. Of course, I've got my ideas about what you can do to become a bigger star in the eyes of people, how to promote yourself in that manner. But I wouldn't have knowledge of the sort of contractual agreements and whether it's worth paying what you pay to a promoter. From the outside looking in, I would assume that you're better off going with a promoter. If you then become an international superstar and you want to build your own sort of promotional company, in the way AJ's got his own, the way Floyd Mayweather had Money Promotions and stuff, Golden Boy Promotions, then yeah, by all means. But you need to be a superstar before you get to that part.
I agree, because I think because Claudio Harrison did it back in the day. Unfortunately, he did succeed, and so did Joe Casali did his own self promotion as well after he retired. Unfortunately, so you have to be a superstar. You have to have obviously know, understand the business element before you can become your own self promoter.